very difficult for me to hit expectations you might have of me if I'm not aware of them. Most of the time, frustration rises when expectations are not met.
If we had sat down and talked about what does your idea of a healthy household look like? What is my idea of a healthy household?
There is no right way to divvy up responsibilities in the house. There is no cookie cutter approach that is remotely acceptable across all families. I think there's two parts to it. What are you available to do, and what are you divinely gifted to do?
If both parties view a marriage as, how can I serve you? I'm all in. What do you need from me?
Being able to recognize it's not 50-50. If there's that mindset, I am probably going to be more focused on keeping score than actually serving you. Can you think back maybe 30, 35 years ago? And I would come in from a busy day at work, and I would make a statement. Maybe it was wrongly worded, but it would be something like, so what'd you do all day?
Yes.
And it would trigger you because what you heard is, this house looks a mess. You haven't done anything. You've just been sitting on the couch eating bonbons. Thought we'd talk about roles and responsibilities today.
Oh, yes, roles and responsibilities. Because when you are right in the thick of raising kids, and maybe you're both working, maybe the husband's working full-time, you're working part-time, maybe you're staying at home, and you're trying to manage all the things. I feel like one of the places that I would get stuck was feeling like all of this responsibility is on me, and I am drowning in laundry. I'm drowning in housework, in cooking, cleaning up. And, you know, we had 3 little boys running around. Like, it was just, there's so much of those years that I sadly don't remember, because I think I was just trying to keep my head above water. So this is for all of the moms and the dads who are trying to manage and juggle the day-to-day responsibilities, because we would get crossways because of the stress of, maybe I was feeling like I've got so much to do here. You would get home from maybe a business trip and you're tired from working, because that was a world that I wasn't used to. I was appreciative because you paid the bills, basically, put a roof over our heads. But, you'd get home, you'd be exhausted, and I would need a break, or, I don't know. It just trying to juggle and navigate all that was really, really hard. And looking back, we lived in a pretty specific gender rolled family where you went off, you worked, you drew the paycheck, and I stayed at home, made sure kids were doing okay, fed them, kept them clean, taught. Kept them alive, cooked the meals, grocery shopped, kept the house cleaned, Yeah. So we were not dual income. We were a one income family, which meant we couldn't afford, or weren't able to afford. I didn't have a house cleaner. I didn't have a nanny. Heck, we didn't even do once a week date nights, because we
couldn't afford it at the time.
We couldn't pay a babysitter.
I must have hit a nerve, because I got to say about 10 words.
Sorry.
And
I just know that this is a real issue for parents.
And I'm going to interrupt. Right? No, I know
it's
we're not 20.
It's a real issue for parents.
Well, and I think there's some stereotypical mindsets that the thing I would say is there is no right way to divvy up responsibilities in the house. There is no cookie cutter approach that is remotely acceptable across all families.
Right.
When we were newly married, you did work outside of the home. You were a school teacher, and we had to make a tough decision. When we had the second child, we figured up what daycare for 2 was going to cost and applied that against what a school teacher salary would be. And I think we netted out like $100 to the good. And you weren't with the kids.
No.
You were gone.
I was working. I would be working to let somebody else raise my children.
And so we made the hard decision to make sure that you were at least with the kids.
Yeah.
So even then, it's like this is the right way to do it. I mean, This is something that just worked for us. But getting to visit with a lot of families over the last 38 years, it's like that comes up a lot as far as who does what, who's responsible for doing what. And we had a kind of a real loose version is anything that dealt with outside, it was my responsibility. Things on the inside was your responsibility. But even then there were variables. And, you know, you took the vast majority of the care of the house and even the children, with the exception of certain things. If there was vomit involved,
I clocked off and you clocked on.
You were off. If there was blood involved, if there was
we didn't have any broken bones, thank God.
Tooth missing,
I couldn't pull teeth.
Chins broken.
Yes.
I mean, it was there were certain things that is like, okay, I'm out.
I know.
But,
I did not deal well with like emergency situations. I would almost go catatonic. And it's funny now. It wasn't funny then because I would try so hard to stay engaged and I just couldn't. I don't know. I don't even know what that is or where that, I don't know if that's a generational thing or I don't know, but sorry, boys. So
no.
one of the things I want to say too is I feel like when it comes to household responsibilities, you know, I don't know, you might be like a young married couple with babies at home and, you know, kids aren't even in school yet. Maybe you're in the thick of the school aged years where school started up and you got homework and you've got sports and you've got all the things that go along with that, which, I remember those years. But there are also invisible responsibilities that I think sometimes get lost in the shuffle when you're dividing or divvying or trying to figure out, okay, who's going to take care of these responsibilities, who's going to take care of these? Because I think a woman carries, for the most part, those invisible things, those invisible responsibilities like kids' schedules, scheduling dental appointments, doctor appointments. Those are things that aren't repeated like on a daily or weekly basis. Like the well-being of the family. Like a lot of times we as moms carry some of the emotional responsibility of, are we doing this okay? Because I feel like for you and me in our personal situation, I didn't have a career that I was working. My job and my career was my home and my children. So I probably had some more time on my hands during nap time or whatever to think or ruminate about being concerned about like, what about this? This kid's not potty trained and maybe it's time to start doing that. So there's all of those little invisible responsibilities that go in addition to mopping the floors, grocery shopping, cleaning toilets, doing laundry. And those can wear on, the mind of an individual. There's stay-at-home dads too.
There are.
Nowadays that sometimes you've got like a woman who works a high-powered job maybe, and you've got a stay-at-home dad. And I think that's amazing, but
the stay-at-home role is one of the hardest roles that I think is out there as far as responsibility, because literally you're never off the clock.
No, you're not.
You especially if they're younger.
Unless somebody throws up, and then I was off the clock.
Then you were off the clock. But when I traveled, when I was gone, you didn't get a break. And you're right. When I would come in from traveling all week, I'd be tired of eating out all week, and you wanted to get out of the house and go out to eat.
Yeah.
So, but as far as roles and responsibilities, there's the encouragement is, I think number one is to have communication between the two parties, and not only I think there's two parts to it. What are you available to do, and what are you divinely gifted to do?
Yeah.
So there's two different things there. It's like, obviously, if you're not home, you travel for work, whatever it is, there's not much you can do about that because you're not available.
Yeah.
And then, if both parties are there, then, there's certain things that you're more gifted or more able to do because of your skill set or your bent or whatever.
Yeah.
So how would we encourage young couples today? Let's say both working outside of the home, because that's a different paradigm than a one income family.
I think I love your idea of a shared vision. I feel like, and we've talked about this so many times, so many things in a healthy family, raising kids, I don't care what stage you're in, goes back to communication. If you don't communicate well, or if you don't leave lines of communication open, even with like between a husband and a wife, you're going to bump up against more problems than you probably need to. So a shared vision, even sitting down, if we had sat down and talked about what is your idea of a healthy household look like? You know, what is my idea of a healthy household? Because I think you talked about like everything on the outside of the house was your responsibility, inside was mine. That came
That
from
was just big picture, but yeah.
the playbook in my head had always been like my dad dealt with the things on the outside of the home and my mom did the inside. And so in my mind, like that was the playbook. That was what was normal. But I think sitting down and sharing, like, what does it look like to you? What does it look like to me? And coming to an agreement of, okay, well, let's merge the two and figure out together what our ideal household, healthy household looks like.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned communication. That is absolutely going to be the key in just about anything. And, one of the things that if we would have had a particular discussion guide, we know it's on the website called the First Friday Discussion Guide on my website. And then I think the link is there, but if it's not, thelancewelch.com/First Friday. If we would have had that when we were newly married, that would have at least created a consistent framework of when can we talk about it. Can it be talked about daily or weekly? Absolutely. Most people get so busy, they don't talk about things weekly. They're surviving on a daily, weekly basis. But what if someone were able to get it on the calendar, like what we did, first Friday? It could be a first Saturday, first Sunday. It doesn't matter. But what would happen if we knew, worst case scenario, once a month, we could get together, talk about what went well last month, what maybe needs to change, what's coming up. I think that addresses one of the biggest issues that lack of communication creates, and that is lack of met expectations. Yeah. It is impossible to meet your expectations I shouldn't say impossible. It's very difficult for me to hit expectations you might have of me if I'm not aware of them.
Yeah.
Now,
I may get paying attention.
If I may get lucky.
Yeah.
And I just happen to do something that was an expectation, but most of the time, frustration rises, arguments flare when expectations are not met. What that First Friday discussion guide would allow is me letting you know, this is a sore spot. This is a problem. Can you help me with that? And we've talked before about not using certain words like always or never, because we end up missing the entire point. If I'm gone all the time and you have this statement, it's like, you never help. Well, I may not help 90% of the time. And so you're almost 100% correct. But what does my mind do? I want to now flip through the 10% that you're wrong. I'm going to prove to you, oh, I do help. Do you remember 6 weeks ago, I was home for 10 minutes and I did this? That's irrelevant, right? So I think communication leads to laying out some healthy expectations.
Well, and what else? Another thing the First Friday does is it keeps your communication in a neutral zone. So if you know, okay, I'm going to save this for this conversation. Now, some things can't be saved, but I feel like you can still find, if you can find a neutral time to talk about it when stress isn't at its height, then that's going to be, because that's where a lot of issues and fights come from, is we don't talk about things in a neutral zone. Or even if there is stress present in our lives, I think you can get your mind into a neutral zone. If you know, okay, we're going to put the kids to bed and tonight we got to talk about some things. You have to know going into this, have the mindset of, this is a neutral zone. I'm going to share how I feel, or I'm going to listen to how my spouse is communicating with me. And I think if you have here's another pet peeve, since we talked about pet peeves in another episode recently. When you have the idea that a marriage is 50-50, you are setting yourself up to fail.
True.
Because if I expect only to give half and you give the other half, well, that's really not a good thing, because that's giving me permission to only extend 50% of love, of grace, of whatever it is, my serving you, you know. But if both parties view a marriage as, how can I serve you? I'm all in, you know. What do you need from me? And
Well, on that, being able to do what you just talked about, to be able to recognize it's not 50-50.
yeah.
If there's that mindset, I am probably going to be more focused on keeping score than actually serving you. I'm going to be dead set on making sure that, okay, I feel like I've done 50 and it doesn't look to me like you've done 50, but I'm not going to be privy to everything that you did that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
So it makes it impossible to really keep score anyway. I remember many, many years ago, probably one of the counseling sessions that we'd had somewhere, it's like, when you think of it from it's 100-0, and I can come to grips with 100-0, then anything that you do, I'm going to have a greater appreciation for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know that 100-0 is the right framework either, but it does reframe the 50-50, because that's keeping score. I mean, that's not healthy, and it's never accurate, because I don't know everything that you did, and you're not going to know everything that I did, unless I want a medal. It's like, and I'm parading around the house, hey, I unloaded the dishwasher. Okay, good. You get a medal.
I think I've even offered to put a sticker on your shirt.
You have offered the
and
sticker
that didn't
before.
go over well. So shared vision of what a healthy household is. Play. You touched a little bit on this. Play to strengths and availability. So here's something that I remember from when the boys were growing up. One of the things, we didn't take your clothes to the cleaners because, again, one income household. And so we decided we were just going to, wash your clothes and then iron them. Well, my strength was not in the ironing department.
I think you did it on purpose.
I actually did not, but thank you for that vote of confidence and way to give 100% to me right then, huh? No, I really didn't, but you ended up taking over. You would iron, even something the boys needed ironed or I needed ironed. You would iron it. Like, you were just better at ironing, and you had this idea of how you wanted your clothes ironed. So that fell to you.
I knew whether I wanted the creases and how strong they were. Yeah.
You knew how hard the starch needed to be, all that kind of thing. So I think even, dividing all the things, making a list of things that have to take place, even on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and then figuring out which things, because we had to figure out some of those things through trial and error. I remember when we first got married, my dad even said, like, I couldn't hardly boil water. Like, it took me a while. And I'll have to say now, like, I'm a pretty good cook.
You are an amazing cook.
But I had to, there was a lot of trial and error. I had to figure some things out because I wasn't used to cooking, or, I would just run through a drive-through in college or whenever, or eat at somebody's house. Like, I didn't know I took care of myself, obviously, but you were far better at eating on a budget than I was. So some of those things it was a shared, like, responsibility. And then obviously when you're gone, I had to cook for the boys. So, but yeah, figuring out through trial and error, you might know, like, obviously I'm not going to be the one that's going to go outside and grill a steak. That's just never been who I am. So I know a lot of females who love to grill and do things like that. I know a lot of females who are do-it-yourselfers. They'll build things. Yeah. They've got, pink drills and all. And I'd love to learn how to do that, but that was not me either. So I think you just have to kind of figure out, these are the non-negotiables. These are things that we cannot do without on a daily or a weekly basis. And realizing that it may not, even your list may not be, you've got exactly half, and I've got exactly half.
And that list, if you do actually get to that point, that means there's hopefully got a lot of communications gone into creating the list.
Yeah.
The other thing I would encourage is recognize that that list is fluid. It's not etched in stone.
Yeah.
You know, as you continue to grow through the relationship and move through life, in even different stages of life, when the kids get older, there may be some things that come off of the list and go to your side instead of my side.
Yeah.
Or they may come off of both of our sides, and the children begin to
Yeah.
pick up some of the things on that list.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that when I was doing all that travel, I loved. Once it finally got through the training phase, I loved the fact that the boys could do the lawn for me. Because when I'd get in on Thursday evenings and I knew that the lawn was done for the week, it was so cool pulling up and it looked the way almost as if I had done it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of work to get to that point, because initially I could do the lawn, thinking about this one particular house, in about 60 to 75 minutes, somewhere in there. Working with them to get it done was well over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, you know what?
Initially it was.
But it would take me that thought process of, man, I could do this so much faster on my own and it looks a whole lot better. But that was we've talked before, that was me being willing to be inconvenienced on the front end so that I could lighten my load later. And it probably took 6 weeks of working with them. And they got to the point where they did it as well, if not better. And that began to lighten the load. So if we get to the point, couples, you get to a point where you've got a list, recognize it's not etched in stone.
Yeah.
And that's where the beautiful thing about either a weekly date night, if you could do that, or at least the once a month, first Friday, first Saturday, whatever it is, review that list and recognize that it can change, and it probably should, to make things run smoother in the house.
Well, and I think too, for all of you moms who stay home, a fun activity when you've got littles at home is to play games to get things done. Like one of the things that I have tried to do with our grandbabies, mainly the oldest one, is to play the game, What Do You See? Like I want, your goal is to have your kids, your grandkids, to look around and see what needs to be done so that you're not just directing. But like, I want to see from her point of view, from Kate's point of view, what do you see that might need to be done right now, and train them in that area. But we used to make games too. When kids are little, they're just so easy because you can make anything fun, even chores, and they think it's the best thing ever. So I think even like we've talked about, even outsourcing. If you have the means to outsource somebody to come in and clean your house once every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever, that's amazing. But I think you even kind of outsource some of that with your kids the older they grow, because one of the things that I think is very important that our schools are not teaching kids, well, there's a lot that they're not teaching them, but a life skill is, how do you run a household? Like when we were going to school, it was called home ec. We were taught, well, I mean, I'm not a sewer, but I never loved sewing.
Yeah, I sewed my own buttons on too.
Oh, yeah, you did. You did.
You let me do that.
I did.
That was
I did.
sweet.
Well, you didn't like the way I did it. That was another thing. But things like that, we learned how to meal prep, how to make a grocery list, well, now I don't think they have home ec in schools nowadays. Like that was back in the, where they had Future Farmers of America, Future Homemakers of America, all those different little things. If you outsource some of this to your kids, you're training them on what goes into running a household. Now, if you've got 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, obviously that's a little different story. But I do think kids need to know this is what goes into, you are part of this family and everybody contributes, I think it's important, if you need to outsource, but outsource with your kids and make it fun. That's another fun idea.
Can you think of anything that you did? I don't remember the gamifying the work and the homework. Because I wasn't there a whole lot. Can you have any ideas or suggestions, examples?
We played a tidy up game. Like we would tidy our rooms before bed, before naps. We'd pick up toys, to music, because the boys loved music. We grew up, we raised the boys. We lived in Shreveport, Louisiana for 10 years. And we went to a church. It's called Shreveport Community Church now, but Denny and Deonza Duran were our lead pastors, and they had 5 or 6 kids and had a best buddies Tape of the Month Club.
Mm-hmm.
So Deonza and her kids, they would write and make up. Her kids would sing these cute little songs that just were everyday things. So we would put chores and like life lessons to music.
Can you sing one of them for us?
I'm not going to sing one for you right now, but we do. I sing them with the kids. Like I remember getting
I've
Kate
heard
those
you
Best
working
Buddies
with Kate,
VHS. Yeah. But I think kids learn things to music so much easier, and it does make it fun. And so, yeah, we would tidy up and put things away before, because there's nothing worse than walking into a darkened room to check on one of your kids and stepping on a Lego or stepping on something sharp. And, you know,
well, you mentioned Shreveport. I remember one of the other roles that at that point it was firmly on your plate as far as responsibility, but we had to come up with some compromise because I wasn't comfortable with it. Do you remember grocery shopping?
Yes.
I did not want you going grocery shopping at night because of where we lived. And if I wasn't home, I mean, you would have, I think it was mainly, you had 2 at the time.
No, I had 3. I had to use 2 shopping carts because I had a baby carrier with Peyton in one. And then Logan was in the little seat, and then Taylor had to hang onto the cart. And because Taylor touched everything and he was at that
Probably
age.
had to put him on a leash.
No, we had a rule when we were in a store, he had to keep his hands in his pockets because it was just, so but I had to have 2 so I could have the baby carrier in one and then stuff groceries partly around him and then in the other.
And that was the compromise.
That was just a normal.
I was just not comfortable with you grocery shopping at night.
Yeah.
I wasn't there the day, so it was like, I know it was massively inconvenient.
Yeah.
We didn't have a sitter that could keep the kids so you could go grocery store shopping. But it's like, again, it's a testament of we are able to do so much more than
you figure it out.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
when you mentioned Shreveport, that was a flashback.
Oh, yeah. Good old Shreveport, Louisiana.
Yeah.
So that's part of teaching kids, teaching them responsibility too. I think on to the next point. Clear communication beats assumptions. So I mentioned earlier that I kind of had a playbook in my head. Some playbooks are good, some playbooks are not. But you know what kind of book in your head is not good is the scorekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by nature, sometimes we tend to keep score in our minds. And that's not a great thing because I'm going to naturally feel like my effort might be better than yours. You know, like we've talked before about judging ourselves. Like we tend to judge ourselves by our own intentions, but we judge everybody else by their actions. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what scorekeeping does. I had to get rid of the scorecard. You know, was I always successful? No, it might resurrect once in a while, but I think if you're in the middle of parenting, if you're middle of raising kids and you are overwhelmed, I think opening up communication, again, clearly communicating what you need is much better because it gets it out of your head. It gets it out of your heart. You can process it. And I think even as a spouse, like you have to be willing to listen to just the frustrations, you know, because it is a hard job. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, it's a really hard job because you're never off the clock. And the assumption is when people say, oh, you know, I'm so-and-so, what do you do? Well, a lot of times, I remember I spent years saying, oh, I don't work, I stay home with the kids. Well, that's actually not true because I worked really hard staying home with kids, keeping a household running.
Yeah.
And
I remember in those early years, I immediately went to work for an insurance company, a life insurance company, and you know there were no guarantees.
Yeah.
Right. And there were times where, I mean, I might have quote written some business and it was we didn't get paid until it actually issued, but I distinctly remember there was a chart that was called the economic value of work done at home, because I think there seemed to be more stay-at-home parents, stay-at-home moms 30 years ago than maybe today. But when I would do these different assessments for families, how much life insurance do you need? It was not uncommon in Shreveport, Louisiana, for the guy to say, "Oh, she doesn't work. I don't need anything on her." Totally devalued the relationship. And there was more than once that I got asked to leave when I challenged it. I just didn't challenge it well.
Oh.
I remember this one where this guy didn't want to put life insurance on his wife. They had a special needs child because he wanted a bass boat. And the life insurance premium on her was going to mean he couldn't buy the bass boat. And so I looked at her and I said, so he would rather have the bass boat than you. And he asked me to leave.
You didn't close that.
I did not close that deal and got invited to leave the house. But it was one of those things.
Couldn't buy diapers for the baby that month because you didn't.
Because I didn't play the game. Yeah. But it's one of those things. It's like there was a chart even back then of the economic value of work done at home based upon how many children you had. Because the whole thought process was, even if you're a one income family, if something happens to you and I'm the wage earner, I either have to quit my job, which means now I need a lot of life insurance to continue to pay, or I'm going to have to hire somebody to come in and nanny the kids, clean the house, do the whatever. And that took a lot of money.
Find a new wife real fast.
Or find a new, but then you're marrying for convenience and not love, right?
Mail order bride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, this took a turn.
It did.
Real fast.
Thanks.
We did not mean to talk about mail order brides.
Well,
So.
I didn't.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Keeping score on that one.
So clear communication.
Oh, is that where we started?
No, that was the last point that we were on. Clear communication beats assumptions. Because I think that sometimes we all make assumptions in our head and we think we know. I have a friend who always says, don't make me fill in the blanks. And I think that's what assumptions do. Assumptions force us to have to fill in blanks. And if I have to fill in blanks, then I might, my chances of getting something wrong are greater than if you just tell me, then you fill in the blank with what we need to actually talk about. So,
wow, that's would you say it's a slippery slope if you want to rely on assumptions?
Yeah, it's very slippery.
Can you give any? I think there's so many times we probably made assumptions. Well, the way I started it out, I made, when I would come in and say, so what have you done all day? There was an assumption on your part that I was maybe unhappy with the way the house looked. There was some assumptions there. I mean, both of us did it. I mean, we can still do it today.
Yeah.
And then also when someone, like you said just a second ago, someone says, I'm overwhelmed, I can't get everything done myself. If I would be able to hear your heart on that, instead of assuming that you're blaming me for not helping, or, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like, even that's a good example of, can we slow down and what are you really saying? What do you really mean from the heart, instead of me trying to defend, well, you don't work outside of the home. Yeah. What don't you know what I'm saying? That's a dangerous one.
Yeah. And I think the assumption when a husband tends to walk in the house and says, what did you do? Your assumption is that you've been just watching TV or just doing nothing all day. But what sometimes is not seen, even if the house is messy, is maybe you've had a teething baby that you literally couldn't put down all day. And so you didn't get the house picked up, or, maybe somebody's sick, or maybe you had some errands to run and the thing that got put on hold was the house. Or so there's so many things that go into, we all make assumptions for sure, but
would it be a safer question to say, how was your day? Instead of what did you do today?
Yeah, for sure. I think
one word.
Yeah. How was your day?
Can change.
Or tell me about your day. Yeah.
Love it.
So
what other advice might you give to a husband that has said something that triggered the wife?
Oh, gosh. I have a lot of advice, but where to start? I think that, maybe offer to bring home dinner. Instead of getting home and saying, what's for dinner?
What's for dinner? Yeah. I've done that. Sorry, by the way.
Oh, well, it's okay. Or remember not too long ago, I wasn't feeling well and I was trying to figure out how can I Instacart I need something on my throat. I just wanted ice cream. And we're telling you this, and then you're like, oh no, oh, I'll go get it. The like maybe listen and, catch on. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're Instacart and,
I wasn't having it.
dinner DoorDash or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. Or, maybe even plan a surprise date night. Like, I feel like socioeconomically, it depends. Everyone's at a different place. We 30 years ago just happened to be that one income family. For those of you that don't know our story, we got pregnant 6 months after we got married. And so was like, oh my gosh, we have to have a real job. Like I, taught for a little bit, and then we ended up having Logan and stayed home. And so we started off financially, maybe on our back foot.
Yeah, a little behind.
But I think that, figuring out how to maybe plan a surprise date night once in a while, just to, I don't know, get a mom, if you're a stay-at-home mom, get her out of the house. Or, even if both of you work, plan something. Usually, and I don't know if this is going to be like sexist, stereotypical sexist, but I think a lot of times the females plan if there's a date night or if there's something that we're going to do. And I think it's nice if you change things up and surprise your wife once in a while and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Just all you have to do is be ready by this time, and just the sitter will be there at whenever. Just make sure the kids have something to eat and then be ready to go.
Yeah. This just a side note. I noticed, every Wednesday night, almost every Wednesday night, we get the opportunity to go watch our grandkids, and Taylor and Lindsay go get a date night. I remember it might have been 3 weeks ago that we got there, and Lindsay looked beautiful. She was dressed up a little bit more than normal. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, where y'all going? She goes, and her face was beaming. She's like, I don't know, Taylor planned it.
Yeah.
That was, I guess, out of the ordinary. Mm-hmm. They usually, like we go to the same place, we eat the same foods, what's convenient, what's close to the house. But I do, now that you mentioned that, distinctly remember her face was lit up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because Taylor planned it. Mm-hmm. And it was downtown Nashville on the water. I mean,
yeah.
She didn't even really know. She just knew a little bit about it.
Yeah.
So you're right. I think, guys, take a little initiative, plan something. And I think that goes back to what I've told guys a lot before. It's like, what did you do before you got married? Did you plan where you're going to go? Did you make a reservation if that was that type of restaurant? Did you make sure the car was clean? We begin to take things for granted. And I know husband and wife, we both do it all the time, but it's like whenever we were dating, I took care to make sure the car was cleaned up before I went to pick you up. And then somewhere along the way, it's like, yeah, this is a work car. Yeah, there's papers all over. Just move them. Right? We begin to take things a little less serious. Mm-hmm. So anyway, little sidebar there. But I remember Lindsay, her face was a little bit more energetic that night when he took the initiative and planned where they were going to eat.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of advice. I think
too, you could even change things up. Like, we're talking about like dividing things. Like, what if, 1 week out of the month, you guys swap roles, like swap your chores, like if I'm the one that does all of the cooking, maybe 1 week out of the month, or maybe once a quarter, you have a week where you have to figure out, well, what are we going to eat this week?
That does seem to be a source, not of major contention, but there's been a lot of times you're like, you pick something. I am tired of always being the one that picks what.
Yes. Because I think after 30 some odd years of every week planning, okay, well, we're going to eat this, I'm going to cook this on this night, and then we'll probably have leftovers, and then this on this day. And it's just like a broken record. And it's not only that, but then we cook at home most of the time. And so if it's something new, if we get tired of eating the same thing, then I got to figure out how to, like, sometimes new recipes can be fun, but sometimes they can be a disaster. you know?
It can, but I think after this much time, if we're going to, I mean, how many times we've seen, or I've seen something on Instagram, it's like, oh, I want to try that. Those usually turn out because it's like, if it looks good, we like the ingredients, we can usually tweak it
Most
and
of
make
the
it
time.
really, really, really good.
Yeah.
I would rather eat your cooking than eating out.
I know. And most of the time I would too, unless it's Mama Mila's.
So I think that's where we're going tonight, Jake. Part of, I don't know when this is going to come out, but this is first Friday. We're doing the recording.
Yeah.
So after this, we'll get prepared and go do our first Friday discussion guide. And we're going to go see Mama Mila's for some amazing Italian.
I've been practicing the gentle art of stomach stretching all week to get ready for tonight.
So shout out to Mama Mila's if you're in the Nashville area. She's down in Columbia.
Yes,
But,
so good.
Great food.
Anyway.
All right.
But yeah, and the last point is just grace and flexibility.
That's probably the biggest one on the list.
It's the biggest one. Communication is probably the biggest, then grace and flexibility.
Okay. 1A, 1B. They're so close. It's like we might mess up on the communication piece, maybe drop the ball. But if we don't have grace and flexibility in there, then it really doesn't matter. So I don't know. We'll just say they're 1A and 1A plus.
I will say this. I do think from people with my personality, because I like things a certain way. Like, you have to admit, like, I can be a little OCD about some things. I think over the years, I couldn't be because some things became bigger than me and I just had to let some things go. But too much flexibility then gets into like this slippery slope for me of not getting things done, you know? Yeah. Like, if you extend grace like day after day after day after day because something's not getting done, that's no longer grace. That's just enabling, bad behavior, because you depend on me to have certain things done. Like, you always have clean underwear, socks, your clothes are clean, put in this place. Like, every 2 weeks you're going to have clean sheets on the bed, like, or whatever, little things like that. Like, if I just didn't do the things, and this is our life now, like back in the day when we were in the thick of raising kids, I do think that, yes, grace and flexibility are really good. But if you're a person who tends to lean on, you resist chores, or, following through with things, or like, one area that we're different personality wise is I like to get things done yesterday. You wait until the last minute possible. Like, if I was going to be out of town and you had the kids, this is when the boys got older, you guys literally would live like cavemen until about 2 hours before I got home. And then everyone would scramble and clean everything up.
I wouldn't call it scrambling. It was organized chaos, but we had the house clean by the time you got home. And I've read some reports recently, like within the last couple of weeks, that it is a sign of heightened awareness and intellect to procrastinate.
Really? Maybe that's a cognitive bias. I think AI is feeding you what it wants you to know, but I don't agree with that. I can probably find just as many studies that say that that's not true. But anyway,
you digress.
I digress. I think that grace and flexibility are good, but I think there's got to be a little bit of accountability, because my family depends on me to do certain things. My family depends on me to,
well, okay. So what I'm actually hearing, I think grace and accountability is like the top thing.
Grace and flexibility.
Okay. Grace and flexibility, true. But where I think it would become a problem is if I begin to take advantage of you showing grace and flexibility. But now that's a different ballgame.
Give me an example of what that would look like if you take advantage of my grace and flexibility.
I never worry about take the trash out or help with the sink or mow the lawn or make sure it's done. I don't mow the lawn anymore, thank goodness. But there's certain things that if I just continued to ignore the things that you appreciate, knowing, oh, she'll forgive me. Oh, she'll give me grace. well, now I'm just taking advantage of you and your kind nature.
Mm-hmm.
That's when, at that point, you'd be just be enabling me.
Yeah.
And think about with the children, if they're supposed to clean up the room at least once a week, but we go in and we clean it for them because we can't handle the mess. Because I know a lot of people that.
Well, that would have been me.
It was you.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to use names, but you outed yourself. But that just enables them they don't have to be accountable to cleaning the room. So that enables that poor behavior. Now, what's interesting is now that they're all out of the house, none of them like a messy room.
Mm-hmm. I know.
And I think another piece too is recognizing that you mentioned earlier, the stereotypes that are created because of our upbringing, we automatically do carry into the marriage, the new family. And we look at what our boys do. They have certain stereotypes that they've had to challenge. Is this, just because I grew up this way, because mom did this and dad did this, does that work for their new home and their new family?
Yeah.
So they have to figure out what works for their family. And I think that comes back to the communication piece and back to the at least the monthly discussion guide that we've put out there, to make it to where we can be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to agree on everything, but we do have to come to an agreement. Don't have to like it, but we do have to agree on.
But if you don't like it, you're probably not going to stay in agreement with it.
I don't know. I would disagree, because a few years back, you took over the budget, YNAB. You did not like that at all, but you had the availability more so than I did. And you have developed a skill of being able to stay on top of that. But I know for a fact you don't enjoy that. But now you've stuck with that for 5 years because you knew that's what we needed, and that's what really helped run the household. So there might be some variances, but we do what we need to.
Yeah.
Get on the same page. Try to stay on the same page.
Yeah.
What else you got?
I think that's it. I think I would encourage parents to just, stick with it. If you feel like you're drowning, communicate, talk to your spouse. And if you're the spouse that doesn't feel like you're drowning, then, be a good listener, provide a listening ear.
What's that?
Yeah, I know you got more jokes. But I think it's important to listen instead of just blow off, it's because I think sometimes a spouse can be like, oh, you're just being emotional. Or, there were a couple of times throughout our marriage, it didn't happen often, because I feel like you kind of learn not to do this. But I remember you once in a while blamed maybe one of my emotional things on a cycle. And that didn't happen often, because that's never a good place to be, But yeah. I think just listen, because sometimes all a person needs to do is vent and get something off their chest too, So, yeah.
How you gonna land this bad boy?
You land it.
Roles and responsibilities are best identified by communication.
Yeah.
They are best recognized that they're not etched in stone. Find out what can you do to help serve your spouse. If you're running a family, I think be intentional on being willing to hand things off to your children and hold them accountable to a high standard of excellence. It is equipping them for the real world. Mm-hmm. It is unrealistic to think that they're going to be able to leave the house, launch into this world well, if they aren't equipped to do so. I think it's completely unfair to expect our children to wing it, to figure it out. Now, sometimes the only way to figure things out is to go through it.
Yeah.
But I think to the extent that we can as parents, we need to, you and I, communicate to be on the same page, be flexible on the chores, the responsibilities, equip our kids to be responsible and to do things with excellence, and to launch them into the world ready to go.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
That's good. That's a good word.
All right.
Pop Bear.
Good word, Pop Bear. All right.
Until next time.
Welch out.
Welch out.